Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends and family beyond the binary, hello and welcome to more junior collegiate Overwatch action for the NJCAA brought to you by Esports U. My name is Warren Jungle God Hammond, and today I am joined on the mic by a new face to me, Relic. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. On the day of Sigma's announced rework for Overwatch 2, I was using my own feetsies to run into my room, sit down, and get ready. I love myself some Overwatch action, and especially at the tail end of this season now, where a lot of the playoff picture has been decided. We're going to be seeing two matches today, one for Pride, one for maybe a little bit more. It's exciting, and I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, first up today, we are going to have Nova versus Finger Lakes. Now, both of these teams are in the group number two. Nova
Mhm.
sitting at the top of that group now with a 7-0 record. Finger Lakes at 5-2 right now. And while their fate isn't ultimately completely in their control, with a win today, they could put themselves in the running to make the playoffs in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, this is a classic case, whether it be sports or esports, of you got one person or you got one team basically on the beach because they already know that they're qualified,
Yes.
and their opposition have something tangible to play for. Yes, it's a long shot, but if they win this series, if they go up onto 6-2, then their two rivals ahead of them can also potentially fall onto 6-2. And then we've got all sorts of crazy tiebreaker scenarios.
Yes.
If you look at past form, yes, Nova should absolutely be winning this series. But that's the beauty of esports and sports in general, Juggle, is we don't know what's going to happen. And when you've got something, when you've got that little candy apple in front of you, dangling in front of you, you just want to go and eat it. And so I'm really excited to see what Finger Lakes brings to the picture.
Me too. I think you're absolutely right. You know, knowing that they have this playoff possibility, this playoff berth possibility within grasp, I imagine they're going to be bringing their A game tonight. This is not going to be an easy ride for Nova, but we're going to have to wait and see exactly how things get started. We're going to be starting things off tonight on Nepal, Relic.
Hmm. Yeah, and if you are new to the relative scene of NJCAA Overwatch, I have problems on the Rocket League side of things as well. I'm trying to go slowly. We have a pretty simple map structure where we go control, then we go to hybrid, then we go to assault, then we go to escort, and then we go back to control. Of course, these are all best of five scenarios. And so, in the unlikely scenario that we do get a draw in one of these maps, we can potentially go to map number six. But of course, with every week, we have our basic starter. Today is Nepal, and then from there on out, the loser of every map. They choose what we go to next. The winners, if there is a side to be chosen, chooses the side. It all seems pretty nice and simple, but especially with Nepal, you're looking at that outer courtyard. You're looking at trying to zone off any sort of aerial assault. We do like to see the Farah getting quite involved, sometimes the Widowmaker, and of course, those flanking opportunities as well. Going to be exciting to see what the first picks of the day are.
They absolutely will. And I think it's just so great that we start out on control maps, right? Because
Yep.
it's like a little hors d'oeuvres, right? You get to see like, oh, they like to run, these teams like to run this kind of composition on a map like Sanctum, right? Something
Yep.
inside with some environmental kill possibilities. Or, they like to check a village, or they like to go to village, where Brawl is the name of the game, and then we could head to Shrine, where it really could be just about anything. Probably not going to see double shield, but you never know. The gate is more wide open there.
Well, yeah, we are in this weird middle phase we were literally talking about before the stream. I referenced it, of course. Overwatch 2 is coming, and so that means there's been no real shakeups to the meta since Echo came in
Yeah,
back in April 2020. And so everyone kind of knows what they're good at by this point. Everyone knows what their best loadouts are for the various maps and whatnot. Me, myself, I look at the pool, I see a giant pillar, I instantly go hamster ball because I like to have fun, right? As we get into it, I mean, it's
you won't
it's
get
a
any argument from me. I'm a wrecking ball
it's
main myself, so yeah.
I'm all about the spin to win strategy, right? But getting into things, I'm certainly looking
Ready
towards the
for
double
battle.
shield potentially as we do have our picks coming through. So we got a Winston coming through on Finger Lakes. Interesting. We got the Mercy, of course. Anna, nice to see. There's our flanking option that I was talking about, of course, in the Sombra. Farah, of course, coming into effect. Classic Reinhardt over on Northern Virginia. And to be fair, again, you're looking at Northern Virginia, you're looking for them to take no pun intended, of course, control early doors. Yes, you could relax. You're already through the playoffs, but you also want to make that statement, Juggle. You don't want to be dropping a series here right at the end, essentially, of your season when you got playoffs in a few weeks, and you want to make sure that you got form going into those.
You're absolutely right. You want to make sure that you are still in tip-top shape when the stakes get higher and higher. Speaking of higher and higher, it's going to be a high ground of Brooks coming in from Northern Virginia. They do drop down to point now, trying to get a little bit of damage into the Finger Lakes, and they come away with a lot as both supports are going to be deleted early on. NJCAAE will find their demise for Northern Virginia, but it's not going to matter too much as Finger Lakes backs off and decides to regroup.
It's all about those early scraps, and we've already seen Junkrat going down as well. NJCAAE, she's doing the right thing, of course, but the problem with going out on that solo flank is you're going to get picked off so easily, especially when you got Finger Lakes on the furrow as well as down goes Winston. You know, you're going to be finding so many problematic moments where you're going to have to dip and dive. You're going to have to get involved in the fight. And right now, Northern Virginia doing such a good job of locking this down. Great to see Solar Flurry and leading from the front. And NJCAAE finally able to get into that village, putting down the support fire as Finger Lakes is really stuck outside the village here.
They absolutely are right now, but they shouldn't be stuck for too long because there's so much mobility in this composition. Finger Lakes really needs to work on taking, I think, a few more angles, maybe not taking a direct frontal assault against Nova right now, because that's just going to be tough against a brawl composition. You're playing right into their game. Dust goes down early on to a rocket hammer from Solar Flare, who in fact picks up a pair more. That's going to be Northern Virginia cruising to another fight win, despite the point being briefly flipped in Finger Lakes' control.
Big yikes. No need for high noon on that one. It was brutality from FSN. And I'm just really impressed overall with Northern Virginia. I mean, we see these little snipe shots from Cobster in particular. It's not really doing too much good. You need to have this coordinated assault. Maybe we're going to see it through the middle here, but Northern Virginia quite happy up on that higher level. Here comes the ult through. Here comes the Diva Bomb. And there goes the double kill. Picks off Reinhardt. Picks off McCree. And maybe now we can finally see some Finger Lakes action. Although Benson not going down as well. It could be difficult for Finger Lakes to try and retake this.
They're going to come in and try and do just that. Lucio, Misa trying as hard as they can to keep contesting point alongside Gray. Just freshly back in their mech. Misa looking for an opportunity to potentially use that sound bomb, but sound barrier. They're taken out though before any opportunity. No. Solar Flare wipes the slate clean with JDW. Copster comes in with the barrage, only going to be able to find one. Now there's no supports left again for Finger Lakes. 19% on the board for them, but Northern Virginia gonna try and continue to push in despite not having a couple of members in tow. In the end, though, it is going to be Finger Lakes coming away with a fight win.
And this is so crucial. I mean, that was a big clash between both these sides. Northern Virginia, they win that. They win the first point, right? But Finger Lakes able to get some percentiles through at least. And now, with Cobster able to move up, this enables the Pharah even further. You can see this attempted flank. Well, yes, you got the Reinhardt shield, but that's eventually going to go down. Finger Lakes, they can't lose the point from here for me, Juggle. If they do lose it again, I can only see this going one way.
And that is not the way that you want to start it out of your Fingers. Like half the team dismantled in the blink of an eye. 60% on the board for them, but Northern Virginia got to be able to take the point back relatively quickly. I'm not sure if anybody from Finger Lakes is going to be able to touch, especially with NJCAAE throwing this Riptide route.
From North Virginia into the lead. I realized I had to catch myself there. Cassidy, new name. Got to still get used to that, of course. But there is plenty that I'm getting used to here as well. Oh, it's
Cassidy,
the name changed.
Cassidy.
The name changed to Cole Cassidy, of course. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing. But also, oh yeah, this is a thing. Northern Virginia looking so good. And actually interesting. Speaking of Cole Cassidy, no longer a part of that North Virginia lineup, switching over to the Reaper, of course. NJCAAE as well, going over to Sombra. So you can already see, even though Northern Virginia have taken that early point, it's nice to see that they're not going to just stick comfortably in that already effective roster. You know, they're looking at this second map. They're looking at, okay, what can we do to further enable ourselves? I see Finger Lakes enabling my smile because they have brought the hamster out. And listen, I know it's a mean pick sometimes, but it does work on this particular layout.
Oh, it absolutely does. I think Wrecking Ball, actually, I think the strongest take in the game right now. So love seeing him coming out and making an appearance.
Boom.
Nice engagement. Pile driver from adversary. Gonna boop Charlantis into the air. They're not going to be long for this world. Couple of picks though in favor of Northern Virginia. Nice charge comes out from Solar Flare. It's gonna be Vince not gonna be able to help out in this fight any longer. Northern Virginia should have this point comfortably under their control.
That's such a shame. Adversary bought tickets to the show for all of his friends, but none of them turned up when they needed to. It was a great opening salvo, but rather than pushing North Virginia into the chokehold, North Virginia just looked around and thought, okay, we'll make this our own chokehold. Do really well to react to that, taking the early point, taking the early percentiles here. Lovely to see FSN getting right in and amongst the mix. You've got Solar Flare, who goes down, actually. Perhaps a little bit overzealous in the front, and they'll be looking to hold out for now whilst he comes back with a respawn.
It's going to be a self-destruct sent out to try and create a little bit of space to buy a little bit of time for Bray. Sorry, that was just them remeching. Adversary drops the minefield on point. It's going to be out the cone, picking up 1 kill on the FSN, but no DPS on the side of Finger Lakes, at least for a moment, as Vent is resurrected. Thus forced to use the Transcendence to stay alive under the oppressive pressure coming out from Northern Virginia, courtesy of their sound barrier as well. Solar Flare, let's rip with a shatter. 2 DPS go down. That's Dusk out of the fight. Valkyrie now popped to try and hang on for dear life, but this is going to be another Nova win.
Big scientific maniac play coming through from Charlantis. And I want to also give great praise over to Misorish as well, bringing down the beats when that Transcendence was coming through. It's an ult for an ult. It's a classic exchange, but it's one where with Northern Virginia on the point, of course, they're going to be in the driving seat. Finger Lakes, again, they're going to have to come up with something different here. They've got to work to adversary's strengths. Otherwise, I mean, look, they are just stuck in the doorway. They're knocking on it, and they are not being allowed in. Northern Virginia know better, and with 15% left juggle, looking like a one-way street sort of game.
That it is. This is absolutely last by territory for Finger Lakes. They're going to try and do as much as they can here to reclaim this point. But with a 6-man EMP landing it up 4K Death Blossom, there's very little that can be done. FSN gets the 5K. Misor is gonna finish off the rest. And with that, Nova takes the first map.
Dominant.
Yes.
Wow. There, I mean, we saw a little shoot of hope there on the first round of affairs, but I forget that the googly eyes.
The googly eyes, yeah, it's great,
it's still
isn't
so
it?
offsetting, right? Especially on the Reaper. But you can see why it's playing the game. It basically destroys any late charge that Finger Lakes are trying to put together. But for me, Finger Lakes, they didn't really change it up as much as we saw on that first round, right? Where we at least saw them take the point. We at least saw them drive into the center with a little bit more intent. I think the strategy was sound, you know, bring the hamster ball out. And for me, it was that opening clash, which ultimately they lost. I mentioned it. It was like Adversary was on the right wavelength, but none of his teammates were willing to commit.
Even
It
took
kind of lost there
Charlantis
and
out of
then.
the fight, if I remember correctly.
Exactly, yeah.
You know,
I mean,
so gave
Northern
an
Virginia
early
were really good.
advantage to to Finger Lakes as well.
So it's, you know, it's got to be a frustrating one for Finger Lakes. And look, we know what they are capable of, at least. You know, yeah, this map doesn't go the way that they want, but thankfully, of course, it is the best of 5 juggle. They do have more maps to be able to go and try and at least peg one back. But for me personally, again, looking at the form of Nova over the entire course of the season, you're looking at this hybrid map, and if they are to take the second map in a row, I don't want to say it's sweep territory necessarily, but you struggle to see where Finger Lakes are going to find any purchase to try and mount a comeback.
Yeah, you know, I think if you end up in a situation like that, the best case scenario is to to spend those first couple of maps figuring out your opponent, right? Trying to download their playstyle, see if you can figure out, okay, what are their habits, what are their strengths, what are they trying to do, and where are the weaknesses, right? I've seen several teams come back and reverse sweep after going down a couple of maps. Um, and it's going to be Finger Lakes choosing Numbani to try and reverse their fortunes, Relic.
Mhm.
We're going to be seeing a lot of dive coming out here, I am sure.
Yeah, classics. You've seen. I think again, this is going to play into Solar Flare's hands on at least the assault side of things. You got Orisa as well, a decent option. You can bring Nova picking defense. We're hearing as well. So For me, you're looking at those early choke points, right? Once you get to the final stage of the push, gets a little bit more open, yes, but I'm looking at those Reinhardts, I'm looking at those Orissas. I know we saw a lot from FSN in the early stages and indeed the latter stages of Nepal, but when you're going to Numbami, you're looking for your big tanks to really shrug off a lot of the damage. Of course, you got the early flanking opportunities as well on that first point from an attacking side. For me, it comes down to the picks once again. I'm looking at Finger Lakes, and it's not that they chose badly. I just don't think they chose the right strategy once they were in game.
Right.
Let's see what they come out with, right? I mean, ultimately, it's all about those matchups, support versus tank.
Yes.
Who's going to be picking off from the side? We'll see as it comes in.
I think one thing that I wanted to mention too, coming off of that last game, is I feel that there was a little bit of a compositional difference between Nova and Finger Lakes
Oh
on
yeah,
Shrine. I think the Wrecking Ball pick was good, but it was kind of like Finger Lakes, it just dipped a toe into dive, right? Rather than
sure.
fully committing. And I think that was maybe a slight mistake on their part, right? I think committing to the full dive would have worked a whole lot better because, like you said, adversary, great engagement, right? But nobody did to follow up. Big part of that reason, nobody could just get there, right? And I think,
Hmm.
having more mobility on the side of Finger Lakes could really provide them a benefit, which is what we're seeing them flirt with in Spawn right now as we load into Numani.
Well, I mean, you look at Cobster. I mean, case in point on the Farah on the first map within the map, I guess it's called. He's not getting involved, not particularly much anyway, and so you might as well dive in and go for a full team wipe on a control point map rather than just have, well, 5 and then one's left poking and prodding. You're not doing anything, you're just sitting there and hoping for the best. And just looking at the early comps coming out, so obviously Orisa on defense, kind of expected, and really aggressive pick from
Oh.
Diva actually. Got Brigitte coming out as well. Ana, expected. Finger Lakes coming out. Reinhardt, Cobster going on the Genji, I'm expecting a lot of that. Torbjorn, conservative on this map, I would say. Overall, again, decent comp coming up with the Divs. That's a little bit more expected on the aggressive side of things.
Yeah,
You
we're
said it yourself, buddy. They gotta dive.
swapping over to a much more brawl-based composition, Finger Lakes, so they decide that they want to just try and close this distance on the bunker composition instead. Northern Virginia coming out with an anti-dive composition as well, so wisely swapping over to something a little different. Cupcake, she's able to connect. Good for one. Mizuki Demon out of the fight for Finger Lakes. And without that initiation tool, it's going to be a whole lot harder to really collapse on this bunker. Adversary going to go down as well. Solar Flare finds a pick. And with that, Finger Lakes looks like they're up a creek without a paddle and start to back away.
So comfortable, and the desperation was there. You saw from Adversary just essentially diving into the enemy higher point and just saying, "Hi, everyone," and not realizing that, there's no plan to work with there. I mean, I understand that you've got ult, but this early in the game really it's not really working out. And you can already see, speaking of ultimates, Finger Lakes, okay, you got Dusk up there with his ult. Everyone in the lower 40s, the 50s range. Reinhardt starting to work his way up. Northern Virginia almost got ults across the board at this stage. They've got so much ammunition.
And they are going to start to use it as fast as they can. That's a quick self-destruct thrown in, neutralizing the effectiveness of that Ant Matrix. Ninja Cupcake goes down as well as Dusk. So 5v5 situation at the moment. FSN looking to see if they can find an opportunity for that Deadeye. Misaris able to get a nice little pick onto Cobster out of the sky as well, and Finger Lakes going to have to back off once again.
Oh, Torbjorn, no! Torbjorn, no! Oh, back into a corner again. Down goes Adversary again. And again, we look at those ult charges for Northern Virginia, and it looks so good. Northern Virginia are playing so well in that, yes, they've got their higher ground. It's a defensive place, yes. But this aggressive pick coming out from Gray working so well, forcing Finger Lakes back. Of course, it's a bit of a balancing act juggle. Can't be pushing on too high, otherwise you're going to get picked off. It might collapse the line. But so far, we've got a minute left and not a single percentage of this control point captured. It's looking really tough for Finger Lakes out there.
It really is. They're going to have to come away with something huge right here, and it's going to be hard to, in the face of a rally as well. Deadeye going to connect, find a kill. No supports left. Once again for Finger Lakes, Northern Virginia has just been crippling their adversary at the knees.
Man.
Fight after fight. These supports for Finger Lakes have got to find some way to survive.
Thank you.
You know, it's at times like these where I remember the fabled words jungle of many a solo queuer. It's time for a pro Genji, and Cobster, for me, needs to be doing a little bit more once again. It just feels a little bit tentative, right? And it's kind of the team overall. Again, we already highlighted it for both of their comps across both of these maps. You've got a lot of dive potential. You've got a lot of sweep potential on your opponents, but you're not enacting it. Cobster, the only guy with an ult up, and look how quickly you got your tanks losing health hand over fist. Ninja Cup, she is doing so much good! Devastation on the front line of Finger Lakes! That is as comprehensive a defense as you will find.
Yeah, I mean, that nano visor right there, it's tough to do anything in the face of that. I mean, unless you've got some serious cooldowns in your pocket, unless you've got that Diva Defense Matrix just ready to go, and you know, with full cooldown as well, it's gonna be tough to deal with that. You know, and unless you've got walls to hide behind it, it's when you're in an overtime situation like that, caught out of the open, have to have point presence, and the opponent pops attack visor. That's rough to say the least. You know, you bring up Copster again. I think you're absolutely right. You know, they were waiting for an opportunity to use that blade. But again, to me, there's a bit of a compositional mismatch here going on with Finger Lakes, right? We saw the dive come out first. Everybody swapped over to a brawl except for Cobster. And because of that, you know, your Genji isn't necessarily a dive character going on their own, right? Genji needs so much support from their team to find value. And your Ana can't even focus her eyes correctly, and there's just no way you're gonna do it. No, when you've got that kind of composition behind you, you're going to be having to find your own opportunities again, and that's just gonna be so difficult.
You know, it's really interesting looking at the difference in comp as Northern Virginia go on the attack as well. A lot of aerial possibilities. You got your Echo out, you got your hamster ball out, you got your Diva out. And I think this is something that perhaps Finger Lakes were lacking, the ability to change up the level of playing field. Already Mercy getting just completely locked out, forced onto the back. I'm surprised that Mizuki's... I was going to say surprised that they haven't been picked off. They have been picked off. So does Gus. It is really looking bad for Finger Lakes here. Both supports down. Sigma, Mr. Feet. He's not going to survive, surely. No, he's not. Down goes adversary again. Maybe just Cobster, an 80 vessel. I think this might be over in a matter of minutes.
You know, dusk has fallen, and when they fell, so did the rest of Finger Lakes, Northern Virginia, with a very quick win on Numbani, taking us 2-0 in quick fashion.
Oh dear. Oh dear indeed. Wow. So, breaking this down for you, Jungle. Not looking good. Finger Lakes are going to be real. We can talk about how they're not doing as well as we perhaps and their fans would like, but we can also talk about how well Northern Virginia are doing both defense and offense as well, and that's across both maps too. They had eyes only for your support. Yes, of course. They might be all over, but they focus in on those supports, and you could say, okay, it's a responsibility. You got to protect your supports better, but I think Northern Virginia are just playing that well, and this is why you bring Echo out, of course. You get that height. You're able to pick from a distance. You got your sticky bombs, of course, as well, just to cause a little bit of chaos. You don't want to be clumping up too much. The comp worked perfectly. I mean, what was that? 1-2 minutes, and they were already done on the attack.
Yeah.
So, you know, we move into assault. I wish I could add more to suggest that Finger Lakes has got a hope here. They do have a hope, but it's a very small one.
Yeah, no, they absolutely have a hope. And I mean, you know, you go to control, not your map, maybe not your map type. We head over to hybrid again. Maybe that's the case. We're going to assault next, so completely different map time again. there is a possibility that maybe Finger Lakes is going to shine on this style of map. Now, of course, we've only got 3 map choices for Assault, regardless of which tournament you're in, unless for some reason Horizon Lunar Colony and Paris make it in for some strange reason. But the
Mhm.
choices are going to be Volskaya Industries, Hanamura, and Temple of Anubis. Now, where do you go if you are Finger Lakes right now? In my mind at least, I feel like I've seen the most success from them on Village so far, right? If we go all the way back to Nepal, that very first sub map where we saw the Brawl v Brawl. So my mind says, why don't maybe Finger Lakes tries Hanamura, right?
Sure.
Very
Yeah.
brawl centric map.
Yeah. It's Nomura, Volskaya, I think you want to avoid Temple of Anubis personally. I think out of all three of
Yeah,
those maps, that's the one that you really don't want to be going on because I think if you look at again, if you just look at that past 5-10 minutes that we've seen from
yeah.
Northern Virginia, when they've got those choke points, and I know we got a decent choke point situation on Hanamura, you've got to break
Mm-hmm.
through the door. But again,
Mm-hmm.
this is where the confidence on your picks comes through. Maybe look to
Yes.
Northern Virginia for inspiration, right? Saw them go quite aerial. Maybe pick up the Echo. Maybe stick to the hamster ball. I don't think that was a bad pick from adversary at all,
Mm.
especially when we think back to Nepal. Just believe or throw the Hail Mary. Again, at this point, when you're trying to get your first point on the board, you've been comprehensively blown out of the water, maybe barring a 2-minute period on the first sub map of map one, right? Just go for it. And if you end up burning and crashing and having a terrible time, well, at least you gave it a go. But give your comp a chance. And we have heard actually it is Hanamura, which I think probably yeah toss up between that and Volskaya. But
Yeah.
honestly, if they've got the comp to go with it, then I wish them nothing but the best.
Nova's going to be starting out on the defense once again. No surprises there. So it will be Finger Lakes with the opportunity to set the goalposts. And I think for all of us here, we just want to see more Overwatch. So we're hoping they set
Oh yeah.
that goalpost quite far. Hanamura, like you said, there is a nasty choke there, right? But the difference is, with that in say Temple of Anubis, the Symmetra pick much more powerful, right? You've
Sure,
got
exactly. Yeah.
so many places that you can teleport from and to. Now, of course, there are the favorites. Going directly to point with a May wall in tow is always a great idea. And, I think Finger Lakes has what it takes to bring this back in. But one big thing that I'm going to come back to that I think I want to see a difference from regarding them is a little more compositional cohesion, right?
Hmm.
We've seen them get, at least in my mind, 90% of the way there to a composition that's going to, function harmoniously together, right? But we're just not quite there all the way. And that's what I would like to see from Finger Lakes. I would like to see a little bit more cohesion.
I'll be honest, I'm liking what I'm seeing. They picked up the Symmetra. Good. They've got themselves both a stationary tank in Reinhardt, got yourself an aggressive tank in Diva. I like that a lot. Dusk can potentially put folks to sleep, potentially enact the stun. I was thinking maybe Sigma on the attack. We've actually got a Sigma over on Northern Virginia with defense. Mercy, again, you got that aeriality. She herself can go through the window if they're looking for a flanking opportunity. Northern Virginia, though, going double shield, no surprises there. Solar Flare, Grey picking up Orisa and Sigma, respectively. Actually, we've got Mercy and Ana on both sides in the map. Torbjorn, no-brainer when it comes to defense on Hanamura. And again, we see Farah coming out, this time via FSN. No surprise there. Mercy Farah combo, pretty great on defense. Again, it all
Ooh.
comes down to Finger Lakes, and an
Oh,
early pick
wow.
is not a great way to start.
That was such an incredible, reading of the situation by FSN, right? You get a read on what they're coming out with. You see the Symmetra. You start layering the damage into her, and all of a sudden you've taken out the entire, the entire approach from this Finger Lakes squad. Wisely, they are going to wait until Copster's back in the fight.
Oh man. I was getting ready for
Oh
today
my
and
gosh.
thinking, oh cool, I get to do some color for Overwatch. That's really exciting. There's not much color here other than to say, oh my word, this is utter annihilation from Northern Virginia.
Oh my
Finger
God.
Lakes cannot lay a finger on FSN. The ult already.
Look at this.
They need it.
It's all blue all day right now. Northern Virginia is showing that, you know, why they are 7-0 right now here in Group 2. Why they are going to be the first seed moving into the playoffs. They are a force to be reckoned with. Look at this, NJCAAE. She finds another pick. It is going to be res, but you don't have that res now moving in. And you don't have a main pick off the cone. Not able to survive, not able to get through this choke at all. What I want to see a little more of right now is adversary dueling this Pharah, because right now they're just getting away with Mirth.
Yeah, Finger Lakes, they got to come up with a new game plan and stat. There goes Optic, but again, there's not much done. Again, both tanks going down. Down goes Dusk. Down goes 80 Vessel. Down goes Mizuki. The ult from FSN raining tears. You can hear them from the Finger Lakes fans. Really, when we're looking at this situation, Finger Lakes, I would almost say just take a couple of seconds back in base. Calm down and think about how you're going to attack this again. You do not have unlimited time. You do not want to have 0% on that point when Northern Virginia are more than likely going to take that first point in a couple of minutes. You need to get that point. It's desperate. And for Northern Virginia, of course, seems pretty simple to say. Don't get too complacent now. Don't push out too much, because while you're in that stronghold, while FSN is popping off as well as he is doing, just staying pretty in your high house, you're not going to be losing at all.
This is, you know, you're absolutely right. This is Finger like you know, they need to take, like you said, a minute or two just to regroup, just to calm down. And FSN is incredible. Let's just say that, first of all. You know, FSN is playing out of their mind right now on Hanamer. Nanabu's going to be committed to Optico, and this is going to be one of their best opportunities to try and move in, but they're stopped in their tracks by a Gravitic Flux. NJCAAE and her turret gonna pick up a kill as well. Dusk not gonna see the light of day for a moment or two. And with that, Northern Virginia's stranglehold on this point continues. 30 seconds left to go here, Relic. This is Finger Lakes' do or die moment for this map, for this match, for their postseason hope. They have to come away with something here. And with 15 seconds left to go, it's looking less and less likely. Another barrage from FSN. Finger Lakes has to touch the point, otherwise the best they can do is hope for a draw to take this to a map 4 here, Relic.
Stop! They're already dead! Oh wait, the timer has stopped. Well, look, we've got another half of this map to go. But I think it would, if we were to proverbially bet on this next couple of minutes, I think the odds of Finger Lakes coming out with a full 0% defense, it's pretty high odds. I'm going to be real with you here. It's not looking good. But FSN, look, as much as we could talk about Finger Lakes, the lack of cohesion, whether it's in composition or whether it's in attack vector, Northern Virginia and FSN in particular. I know we were picking up on his Cassidy earlier, the Reaper play of the game back in the poll, you might remember. But as Pharah, I mean, that was one of the most complete attacking performances from a defensive standpoint, of course, that you could see. Over and over and over again. And the most ominous thing is that he didn't even need it on half the occasions. His accuracy was insane. And Finger Lakes might be looking up to the sky again, perhaps, as well. Yeah, they got the Symmetra coming out, but actually less of an aerial assault and more of a ground assault. Once again, the Orisa coming through for Northern Virginia. Finger Lakes on the defense. Again, looking at that Reinhardt, looking at that Sigma, not too shabby, I don't think. Cassidy, Junkrat. I mean, really, do the picks matter at this point? Northern Virginia's vibing.
Northern Virginia is absolutely vibing, and I love the composition they're coming out with as well. One of the interesting things is they got Solar Flare on the Orisa, and you know, they've got the May Symmetra, right? They're just going to look to try and get this tick without Finger Lakes even being able to touch a toe onto point here, right? It's gonna be a TP to point. May ball in the choke to try and keep things away. They may leave Solar Flare in the choke to just rain down damage as well. We are going to get the TP actually to the top right. That's going to be Gray now dropping the point, starting to swing that Rocket Hammer. Misses the charge. That's going to leave him vulnerable, but it doesn't matter. Solar Flare there to start to pick up the pieces. That's going to be 0 supports left. The damage is already done here, Relic, and that will be Nova continuing their dominance in Group 2.
Pepe hands. Only Pepe hands. I was being generous when I gave them a couple of minutes. FSN, absolutely no surprises here, right?
Yeah.
In that defense, just insurmountable as an attack, and you get the power boost. You know,
Yeah.
like how overpowered a player do you want him to be? Well, if you're Northern Virginia, of course, you want him to be very overpowered, and that was brilliant from Northern Virginia. The 3-0 sweep. Great to see that they weren't being complacent. Great to see that they weren't
Yeah.
dropping the ball. They knew that their opposition today had everything to play for, and yet they turned up, they lay the hammer down, and they're basically saying to the rest of the groups, to the rest of the competition going towards playoff, this is what you got to contend with. This is us on a week that doesn't matter. Brace yourselves.
Yeah, exactly. They played the gatekeeper today for Finger Lakes, preventing their hopes from making it to the playoffs. So sorry to see them go. Great team, but I mean, they just came up against a juggernaut
Oh man.
today in Nova. I mean, I think they should rebrand to Supernova. Let's be honest here, because at this point, I don't think just Nova cuts it.
I mean, if they're going supernova, then FSN was showing some solar flare with his plays. And going forward into playoff, I think we've got to be looking at him really as one of the playmakers. This is
Yes.
this is the sort of series where other teams and coaches should take note. We saw Nova in general was just so efficient with taking out the support back lines, completely removing the foundations from which Finger Lakes were working with. Well, if you want to take the foundation away from Nova, you take out FSN. And we did see it in a small snippet right at the beginning of this series.
Yeah.
When FSN on Cassidy went down, what do you know? Finger Lakes are able to take the point, albeit briefly. But that kind of me tells a story. Other teams take note.
Absolutely. We are going to see if we can get an interview with one of the members of Nova. But in the meantime, let's take a moment to sing their praises a little bit more, because honestly, like
Please.
this was a team that I think they they did it by the book, right?
Sure.
They had their plans, they had their compositions ready to go. They executed on all of their plans as well, right? They looked to be in control, I think, every step of the way, right? So not only I think were they mechanically all very gifted, but intellectually they showed a tremendous understanding of the game and win conditions, right? Let's talk about the focus fire they had on the back line. I mean, that wasn't just the case in the first map, right? Where we
No.
started talking about it. That was the case the entire way through, right? Dusk rarely saw dawn this entire map for Finger Lakes. So, they they know exactly what to do in any given situation that we saw today. And if you're another one of these teams in this tournament and you're watching today, you've got to be, you know, hanging your head, I think, on your hand and saying to yourself, like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be a headache. We got to go and face them at some point. It's not looking pretty for other teams. Let's be honest.
It's it's kind of it's ironic in a way, isn't it? Because we didn't really talk much about the Finger Lakes defense because they were taken out of the picture so many times. But we didn't really talk much about the Northern Virginia support either, where they were doing their jobs so well that we're like, this is normal. I mean, we talk about FSN, but of course, all of that FSN DPS was coming through Misa, through Charlantis, just being there at all times. I mean, it was the
Yeah.
Mercy Farah combo. It's a classic, goes back a long time, but it still works so well. And again, we look at the tanks and their sort of roles. We talk about Solar Flare and Gray. They weren't just content to go all shield. They were daring with their
Mhm.
mix up with their mix ups with their matchups. They were happy to go with an aggressive tank on defense a couple of times as well. I like that confidence in them because it shows that they're willing to go a little bit above and beyond the board to show a new strategy again in a meta which has remained quite stagnant for a while now. Really
Yes.
looking forward to seeing what comes from them in the future.
As am I. Speaking of the future, we're going to take a brief trip to that via a short break. So, we're going to see if we can get an interview from one of the members of Nova. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Well, if you blinked, you missed it today. Nova with a quick 3-0 over Finger Lakes Community College. But there was a lot of exciting action today coming out from this Nova squad, and we have got Charlantis in the booth to talk to us for a few minutes. First off, congratulations on a great win today. You are welcome. Now, I want to know, going into these last couple of weeks, right? You all are already qualified for the playoffs, right? You are sitting pretty with a spotless record. I haven't actually looked at the map differential, but if today is anything to be judged by, I would imagine that it's looking pretty healthy as well. Now,
Definitely.
what is your goal as a team over these last 2 weeks? How are you preparing for the playoffs to make sure that you can continue the dominance that you've shown so far in this tournament?
Um, we are scrimming. Definitely, maybe we could fit more scrims in. I don't know. Seem to figure out our schedule. But VODs should be helpful a lot. And yeah, I think.
We,
Mhm.
I mean, we saw you all vibing together as a team anyway. Like whether you need more scrims or not, what's clear to me
No.
is that you worked so well together regardless. We saw you steal the spotlight a bit in map one as Moira, but I
Mhm.
want to put a spotlight once again on your teammate FSN. A bit of a triple barrel question for you. Firstly, how exciting and enjoyable is it to play alongside him? Secondly, are you intimidated by him? And thirdly, how much money have you paid him to tie him down to the school into his 40s?
um, don't tell. We haven't paid. No. Um. Uh, I'm very intimidated by him. He is a big, beefy, strong player. Best player on the team. Up there, you know. No, he's good, fun to play with. Enjoy playing with him, and yeah, it's cool.
Excellent. Well, before we close out the interview, I want to dive a little bit deeper into what your overall strategies are. What do you think your strengths are as a team, and in particular, what do you think was one of the keys to your success so far this season, right? What has been kind of like the underlying thread to your all gameplay that you think has really helped catapult you to such heights in this tournament so far?
I think getting along with the players is definitely one of the most
Hmm.
important things. We spend a lot of time together doing stuff outside of game, not just in game. I think maybe we spend more time together outside of game, just goofing off and having fun and getting to know everybody. And I think that's definitely one of the most important things, and it helps a lot with all that stuff.
Excellent. To close things out, then, anyone that you would like to give a shout out to today? Friends, family, teammates, whoever.
Um, let's see. The whole team, our coach Camo, our director John, teammates. Yeah, I'll go through the list. Let me find it. Stanley, Gray, Winter, Nathan, Kieran, Amy, and Jasmine. Woo! All you guys are great.
Awesome.
Um,
Awesome.
yeah.
Love to hear it. Well, thank you so much for coming in and chatting with us a little bit today, Charlantis. Best of luck to you in the future. And once again, congratulations on a well deserved win today.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome. All right, Relic. We have got one more Overwatch series coming
Yes, we
between the
do.
two of us tonight. We are going to take a short break before we get to that, though. Any final words you'd like to leave the audience with before we depart for a few minutes?
Uh, Listen, follow Charlantis' example. If you find yourselves in an interview situation, have yourselves a list ready to read out because that
Yes.
man was on it with his. Hey, I want to shout out all of these folks and well worthy shout outs as well. I think honestly, great message at the end of the day. You want to play multiplayer competitively or just for fun, play it with your friends. It makes it so much more easy and lovely and experience.
It certainly does. Great message to send us off to a break with. We will be back here very shortly with another exciting match. This one between the Harrisburg Area Community College and Hawking. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a few short minutes.